do I have?
Yes. So first of all, let me mention that this session is being recorded just to inform everyone. You have about 25 minutes for the guests session.
Okay, thank you.
What's the difference?
Okay, so yes, life is short. Time goes very quickly, and it makes everything that Deji is doing with this network even all the more important, because if time is so precious, then you want to spend it well. I think somebody is not on mute. So what are the, and maybe the panel is going to get into this, but I want to just first talk about the fact that there is a war on manhood today, and is a war that is being waged across the globe in different ways. But the agenda is always the same, and that is, if you can cut off the head, which is the male, then you can defeat the family. From my own experience with scholarship, thank you. From my own experience with Mentee scholarship, I have come to realize that so many people, when they apply and they tell us about their story, we see things like they've lost their father, they've lost their father. The percentage of people who say that just, it blows my mind. Because if you think about the demography of people who apply for these scholarships, they're very young people. Some of them are as young as 20. Maybe the oldest will be 23, 24, around that age. And for them to have already lost their parents, and most of the time it's always the dad, that tells me that there is just a systematic way that the enemy, in this case, I would say the devil, is going out there just to eliminate that. Say, if I can just kill them, make them useless, then the whole family falls apart from there. In the developed world here, for instance, in the US, in the Los Angeles area, in the US, we see it play out in a different way. But again, the agenda is the same: destroy male headship. Here it's the feminist movement and wanting the male to not be men. You see men now acting like women. You see a huge transgender movement that is going on, and you see a push at everywhere you go in the corporate world, in the political world. They're trying to relegate men. They will say in the name of equality, and I'm all for equality, but when you really listen to them and really listen to their agenda, they just want to eliminate male leadership and male headship. And how do I know this? I know this because they tell us. I'll give you an example. There is a company in the US where 100% of their board directors are female. And that company was celebrated across the media as a good example of diversity. Hold up. If what you're looking for is equality, you should celebrate 50-50 representation on the board, not 100-0. But it wasn't that way. So, but if it were to be 100% male, then they will be in violation of so many laws. So that tells me that they're not looking for equality as they preach. They say equality because they know that is what will sell, and that what most reasonable people will buy into. But the agenda really is to eliminate the male issue. And it's really a satanic agenda. pure and simple. It's you cut off the male headship. You let men start to doubt themselves. You let men start to become less manly. Then everything can just degenerate from there. If the head is already corrupt, if the head is already weak, then you can easily go after the body. Uh, we know this because uh, is a strike the shepherd, the flock will scatter strategy, and it's been working. You see men here in the US, for instance, not really acting like women in their thoughts, in their actions, and increasingly even in their appearance. Uh, in the less developed part of the world, you see them dying. It's the same playbook. So I want to say this. I just want to bring it to your attention because I want to cast everything I'm going to say against the background of a larger war that is going on. And the war is to destroy the family, and the easiest way to do that is to destroy male headship. If that is physical destruction, like we see in the developing countries, or moral destruction, as we see in the developed world, the agenda is always the same. So thank you, Deji, again for saying things like this and calling men to be men, calling them to be strong men, because strong men are needed to have a strong society. Nothing against women. I love all the women in my life, my mom, my wife, my daughters, my sisters, and we respect them and honor them, rightly so, but not we shouldn't do that at the expense of men. And there are not enough forums like this. I wish there were more forums like this. So I wanna start from there. So how do you develop the man? How do you develop yourself? Number one, I'm gonna say deep practice. Please, if you are not speaking, please mute yourself. Just make sure you're always on mute. Number one, I want to say deep practice. What does deep practice mean? Deep practice means practicing at the edge of your ability. So people say, practice makes perfection or more nearly so. That may or may not be true. But what I do know is that when you practice at the edge of your ability, you push yourself. You don't do the same thing over and over, but you go to the edge of how well you can do it right now. And you do that enough for your brain to be wired to do it easier, and then you push the boundary. So that is deep practice. And deep practice intertwines with the next thing I want to say, which is you practice also deep work. What does that mean? It means blocking out a section of your day for nothing else except engaging in developing your craft, whatever your craft is. If you're a student, that would mean your studies. If you're a professional, that would mean the key things in your profession that you need to master. And once you master it, everybody listens to you. Everybody comes to you for ideas. Everybody comes to you for, for advice. When you do that, you 10x, you multiply your value by 10. Deep practice, practicing at the edge of your ability, and you do this in huge chunks of distraction-free periods in your day. And that is what I call deep work. And when I mean distraction-free, I really mean distraction-free. You switch off your phone, you turn off any notifications that might come, and you just go to work. It was Andrew Carnegie that says that the rarest thing to find is a man willing to lock himself up in his room to develop his craft. So that's the rarest thing to find. Now, think about it. Economics tells us that if something is rare, it will be very valuable. So a lot of you are thinking, how can I make more money? How can I be more valuable? Well, be rare. Make yourself rare. And how you can make yourself rare is by doing things that most people don't do. Most people don't lock themselves up just to study, especially when they are no longer students. Of course, you should do it when you're a student because you want to make good grades. But even after you leave school, you need to keep studying. It might be a book, obviously, because knowledge is codified in books. But more importantly is you are trying to own your craft. And you can't do that in an environment of distraction. When you come out of this period of being alone with your thoughts, of being engaged in deep study, deep work, deep practice, you come out a different person each time. Each time you come out a little better, a little clearer, a little above the herd, such that when they're looking for someone to lead, someone to chair a committee, someone to be on an advisory board, you are naturally the candidate to pick because you've done things that, frankly, many people don't do. Not because they're not smart, but because they've just found it to be too difficult to do. And it's more so, especially now where we have connected devices. While I was in college with DG, we have less distraction. There was no Facebook or anything. I still remember very vividly the first time I saw a mobile phone. I was in Ife, and in fact, it was Deji's friend that has that mobile phone. His name is also Deji. And oh, no, Dapo Shuntoye. He was the very first person I saw with the mobile phone for whatever reason. And when I saw it, the first thing that just came to my mind is this is useless. It's useless because who are you going to call? Nobody has it, you know. And that's the kind of environment I went to college in. Now you are in an environment where everybody has it, so it's very useful. And you can call people, they can call you, and then you can go online now. So then you can only text. The texting is very text friendly.
Hunger. Oh my God, I am mommy.
Sorry, Eso, can you go on mute? Thank you.
So yeah, so you are in a connected environment now, so the distraction level is just off the roof. And the more you can make yourself rare, the more you're going to be disproportionately rewarded. There is nothing we can do about it. The rich is going to get richer, the poor are going to get poorer. You want to be in the category of the rich. The gulf is going to get larger and larger because we are approaching the end. And really all you can do is put yourself in the category of the rich, of the strong, of the wise, so that you become better in all those attributes that you want to see. And the gulf is not getting is getting wider, not just in a place like Nigeria or India, or is getting wider in the Canada, in the UK, in the US of this world. It's becoming more and more winner takes most, if not all. If you think about it, it's very difficult for anybody now to come up with another Facebook. Facebook has already taken all the attention, right? It's very difficult now for anybody to come up with another Google. You have to, it's becoming a world in which the winner are just taking a bigger and bigger share of the pie. And as is like that for corporations, that's the same way it is for countries. Just one country, for instance, controls 25% of the resources of this world. One country, and there are like 153 of them. And it's like that for individuals too. I can quote statistics for you to tell you that the first 1% of people on the wealth scale in this world control more than the bottom 60% put together. It's because the skills, the way the society today rewards, it's disproportionate. So instead of trying to fight that trend, it's just better to be in the right side of that trend. And I'm telling you, the way you do that is do the very difficult things. I lead an entire division of a new energy business for my employer today, and I still spend hours reading, not just reading, emails or whatever, but actually studying, because I want to be sought after. I want to make a difference. I want to help. And the only way I can do that is just by studying. And I do that. I block. I have my office. I block distraction so that I can be valuable to everyone, myself, the society, my company, the world. One way also to be valuable is you have to find a great coach. So you have to look for someone that is already doing what you want to do and ask them to coach you. And so every day I kid you not, I get like 4-5 emails of people asking me to be their mentor, which is very interesting to me because number one, I can't, I only have 24 hours in a day, but most of the time, these people, they don't even know what they want to do. I think they just send me that email because we're connected on LinkedIn and they know they can send me a message. But when you're asking someone to coach you, you need to show what you've done. You need to show that these are the things you've done, these are the things you like to do, and these are the questions that you have. And it makes it easier for that person to respond to you. But, just sending an email to say, hey, can you be my mentor? It's just, if you are actually asking somebody of value that question, trust me, that person has plenty of other people too that are asking them that same. So why should you stand out? Why should they spend 5 minutes of their day to respond to your email? So always make sure that you ask questions in a way that you expect a reply, and that the reply that you're going to get is going to be very quality. So when you're approaching people, just say, this is what I know about you. This is what I've done. This is where I'm going. And these are the things that are not clear, or these are the things I need help with. And if you do that, you've dramatically increased your chance of getting a good response. But you need to find a great coach, and great coaches are there everywhere. They whatever it is you want to become better at. If it's a particular programming language, if it is how to read financial statements, if it is how to solve international taxation issues, whatever technical or non-technical issue you're facing, there are great coaches out there. And they are everywhere if you want to look for them. If you want to be a better husband, for instance, a better dad, a better citizen, there are great examples all around you. Watch them. To be honest, most of the time you can just learn just by watching. You don't even have to shoot them an email to say, hey, I want you to mentor me or coach me. Just watch them. And if there are people that maybe post often on social media, or if they have written a book, read all their posts. If they have published a book, read it. If they have a blog, read all their articles. You will learn so much more actually through that route than sometimes even talking to them. Because when you talk to them, maybe you guys have just 5 minutes or something. There is only so much you can discuss together. But if they've written plenty of articles, or they've posted, or they've written a book, go study it. The last thing I'm going to say before I turn it over here is, so I've talked about deep practice done in the concept of deep work so that you can be very valuable. And I've said you should find a great coach. The last thing is always think about multiplying yourself. Always think about multiplying yourself. If you keep that in mind, it will guide a great many decisions that you're going to make. Because you don't want to multiply a defect. So if you think there is a defect in your character, a defect in your thinking, you want to correct that because you don't want that to be passed on. And I think that's why so many men, when they become fathers, they just become better than they were when they were boys. It's not because I think they become so because they don't want to pass along whatever weaknesses or whatever flaws that they see in themselves in their kids. So that desire to only multiply or to only pass along what is good make men just better fathers. So my ask is, as you're learning, as you're developing yourself, as you're being poured into by other people, also have that desire to pass along what you learned, pass along what you know, multiply yourself. By multiplying yourself, to be honest, you're going to help yourself a huge deal. You really don't know something until you start teaching it. So that will help you, but also it's going to help the people you're teaching, the people you're pouring yourself into, the people you're multiplying yourself into. So multiply yourself. Think of how you can replicate yourself. If you've become good at something, great. Now, how can you make 4 or 5 people become good at it as well? That will set you on a path that will separate you again from the rest. Teaching what you know, living what you know, multiplying yourself in other people. Those are the ways I think you can develop into a great man. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the host. I would like your questions. I always find speaking like this in monologue more challenging than answering questions. But I try to set the table. I try to touch on several things. But if you have any specific questions, please ask. And look, be real. If you want real answers, ask real questions, and I'll be more than happy to respond.
Mentee, thank you very much. That was really quite insightful. I think there are a lot of things you've said that I've always known about you for the last 20 years that we've known each other. So they don't come to me as strange or weird, especially when you talk about your knowledge, learning, always being there to study. I remember those days in Ife, nobody had as many books as you had in your room there. And I'm not talking about chemical engineering books. I'm talking about books about life, about leadership, about experiences. I mean, we always were there to borrow books from you. So these are things that I've seen you carry on, and I'm not surprised that they've helped to propel you to where you are today. So thank you very much.
Thanks. About 4 or 5 months ago, we moved. We used to live in New Orleans, and now we live around the Los Angeles area, and the movers were shocked at the amount of books they had to pack. They were shocked. I think it was like 30 boxes.
Oh.
Yeah, and those were the things that mattered to me anyway. They really didn't, I mean, they moved some things, but I was like, look, most of the things we had, I gave away. I was like, we can always reproduce them where we're going. We can buy new ones. But these books, and some of them I've had them since college.
Yeah, I can imagine.
This go with me. If you strip everything I have, but just give me these books, I can always reproduce every other thing. But leave these books with me.
That's very apt. Very apt. Very, very apt. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Mentee, you will still be with us, and for the Q&A session at the end. So once we are done with the panel session, in the next 35 minutes, we'll have a Q&A session. So if you have questions, please drop them in the chat box. All those questions will be addressed at the very end. I can already see those questions coming, so we just keep dropping them. We will address all of them at the end of the session during the Q&A session. So I think it's a good time to now move to the panel session, and I'm going to use that opportunity to just do a brief introduction of the different speakers that we have today that will be joining me on the panel. I think we've all read their biographies or their short bios, but just to mention, I have with me Damilola Loba, who is a partner with E&Y. And Dami, I've known Dami for a few, I don't know, is it up to a year or more now? But Dami is probably one of the people I find quite, is somebody who relates, who engages, who networks, is somebody who is easy to relate with. Let me put it that way. And I find it so easy to talk to him. I find it so easy to reach out to him. And, looking at what he has achieved, in his career over the last couple of years, I think there's a lot that we can learn from him on this panel. So Dami, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. And thank you to Dr. Taiwo. I enjoyed your should I call it keynote or introductory comments.
Thank you very much, Dami. The next person is the full name you see is Mobekeluluwa Koyeladele, but we all call him Koye. He's a senior manager at Amazon UK. I've also known Koye for maybe not 20 years, but close enough to that, maybe 16 years. One of the questions I'll throw to Koye later on is, he's one of the most confident young men I've met, and that oozes out everywhere. And this has also been since I've known him, many years ago in Ife, and he has gone on a great journey that is quite inspiring, and I'm sure he's going to be able to share a lot about his experiences here as well. So welcome, Koye.
Thank you, Pastor DG, and thank you, Dr. Mentee. It was also really nice to listen to your opening keynote.
Yeah, thanks. Welcome, Koye. And last but not the least is Seun Oloruntimehin. Seun is an investment analyst at the Capital Group. Seun I've not known for too long, but the little while I've known him from afar, he's somebody I respect a lot. He probably does not know much about this, but he's somebody I do respect a lot. He has cracked some codes that I think I want to learn about as well. So I'm really looking forward to listen to him. So Seun, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me. And it was a great experience, keynote, and hopefully I can say one or two interesting things that will be helpful to people. And I think this is the fourth time I'm saying damn in a long time.
Yeah.
From CFA writing days in Ghana, 10-ish years ago, I don't know, even more than that now. Okay.
Yeah. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. Yeah.
All right, so we'll get right into it. The reality is that I want this session to be as practical as possible, and I've already said that to I hinted all the panelists about this. The subject of the boy-man crisis, as I mentioned, it has been a source of concern, and I'm sure that's not only to me, but to many other people, and probably to the panelists as well. And whether we like it or not, like Mentee said, the world needs men, and their position in the society cannot be overemphasized. So we want to get our men back, and that's the reality. But we all know it's a combined package, right? It's a multifaceted problem that has to be dealt with from many directions. But the direction we want to look at it from today is really thinking about the approach of learning, networking, and building, getting mentors. How it plays a critical role on the journey towards living a meaningful life as a man. So the first question I want to ask each of the panel members, do you think there is a man crisis or there's a boy crisis in the society today? I mean, what you've seen over the last couple of years, do you think there's a man crisis? And I will start with you, Koye.
Okay, I was hoping to go last. What? Yes, the quick answer is yes. I do think that there is. I was in Nigeria for a month earlier this year, and I spent a lot of time in Ibadan. And it's incredible how there were so many young men or old boys that were constantly under the influence, either of drugs or alcohol. And those who were not constantly under the influence, it just generally felt like things were different from when I was growing up in the same Ibadan only, 15 years ago. So yes, definitely. I mean, I feel like Dr. Taiwo went into a bit more detail about the context for it, but I completely agree that something needs to be done to reverse that trend.
Thanks, Koyi. Dami, what do you think?
Yeah, I equally agree. In fact, when Dr. Taiwo was saying it, I felt, and that was quite apt because what you see around is a couple of men with no direction, and they're not far away from you, even within your family, your extended family. You see guys that, ought to be doing certain things, but they are not because of lack of direction, poor mentor, they don't have mentors, and generally speaking, they just don't want to do anything. Whereas you see the counterpart, the female counterpart, who seem to have that direction, and I think it's a general onslaught against the manhood, where the devil is really trying to diminish the head. A man should be like the priest of the home, a chief priest, I'll call it. That's what I always tell my wife, that look, a man should be a chief priest. So, and it starts from somewhere. When that leadership headship has been destroyed or have been impaired, I'll use the word impaired, then things start going wrong. So I'll put it that way.
Yeah, thanks. It looks like we are tapering towards the same direction. Shehu, you've probably lived outside of Nigeria for quite an extended period. Do you think this is a Nigerian problem, or do you think it's a global problem?
I think it's global. Maybe where I disagree a little bit is the level of maybe sympathy I have for the old boys or young men we might call. And also what I think are some of the root causes. Because I think the sympathy in the sense is, I graduated in UI 2007. The difference between graduating in UI 2007 and graduating from UI in 2017 is only 10 years, but the context in which Nigeria was radically different. And the opportunities we had, I think, was a little bit more, the economy was booming and things were expanding. And I think a little bit of that has fed into a little bit of, how will I call it, a sense of not reduced hope. And I think coming at it from that area, sort of understanding that some of the drivers of this issue is economic, I think is interesting. But I agree that it's there. And if you look at the US or the UK, I lived in the US and I live in the UK now. A lot of jobs that usually is very targeted at sort of young men, sort of construction, engineering, the kind of quote unquote man jobs for about 10 plus years have been more difficult to find. So I think why I don't disagree that there's a cultural onslaught in different ways around manhood and the like, and that's led to all this. I also think the economic argument for why that has existed, and the difference between men and women and how they've experienced things in the US or UK, even in Nigeria, is not simply down to, maybe young men not trying to get serious and the like. I think there's some serious economic things even. So I think that's probably I won't say area of disagreement, but my area where I'd like to color the discussion a little bit is been the economics for men have been a bit tougher than has been in the history. And I can elaborate if it's helpful, but.
No, that's fantastic. I always like, those colorings, because the reality is that if we think about the problem as just being one directional, then I don't think we'll be able to get to the root of it. The reality is that it's actually multifaceted, and we have to look at it really from those different directions. So I will go a bit deeper into the subject for today. And Koya, I'll be starting with you, and it's on the subject of mentorship. Mentee has already spoken quite a bit about how critical it is to get coaches, mentors. Sometimes some people say it's the same or it's different, but focusing on the core of that of getting mentors in one's life. You've probably been one of the most vocal about the role of mentors in your life or in someone's life. What led you to the decision to seek out a mentor in the first place when you got your first mentors, as it were?
Really good question. I think my very first mentor, I asked someone to mentor me for the first time when I was in part 1 in Ife. And generally, how I've thought about mentorship since then, and what I was thinking when I asked this person to be my mentor, was that there had to be something that the person has and you want to develop. That leads you to approach them and ask them to mentor you. Now, in my case, I'd grown up in Ibadan, and I grew up in a very small, very sheltered environment. So my parents didn't have any money. And I remember that for the longest time, all I wanted from life was to buy a 2004 Corolla and to marry a fine wife. That was everything I wanted. And it was when I got to Ife for the first time in part 1 in 2006 that I realized that there was a lot more to life than buying the 2004 Corolla and marrying a fine wife. But I felt like I was not exposed at all. I had no clue how the world worked. So I felt like, the raw talent was there, but I needed someone who had seen the world a bit better, who had bigger dreams, who had the benefit of more exposure, to kind of guide me on that path and help me to dream bigger. So that was really what drove that very first mentorship request. When I think about, for example, my first professional mentor, Ace, who is someone who I wouldn't be sitting in this room if Ace hadn't. Sorry, there's someone who isn't on mute. I wouldn't have this life, literally, if I didn't have the benefit of a mentorship, for example. And again, it was something similar. I joined P&G. It was my very first job. I didn't even know what purchasing did until I got the job, literally. And I said to myself, there's somebody in this organization that has something I want. I want to be respected. I want to have a vast knowledge of the industry. I want to have deep subject matter expertise. I'm going to look around for who is the most senior person in this company who has all of these things, who I want to be like, and I'm going to go to them and ask them to be my mentor. So ultimately, that's how I've approached it, starting with the first person I asked in 2006 and going on to asking the vice president at Amazon earlier this year, for example, to mentor me. It's always been, there's something I want, there's somewhere I want to be, there's a general direction of travel I'm going in. There's somebody who is either already there or who is farther ahead on that journey. And I'm going to go to that person and I'm going to ask them to guide me.
And when you asked them, in the 2 instances, in fact, the 3, the first when you were in Ife, the second at Procter & Gamble, and the third at Amazon, you actually requested that you wanted them to be your mentors. What was their reaction to the request?
So yeah, I mentioned 3 examples, but I've done this a lot more times than that. The reaction varied. I remember when I asked these, for example, our first question back to me was why? Why me? Why should I? So it was first, why me? Then it was next, why should I mentor you? And I think that's something that Dr. Taiwo touched on earlier. It's very often people will go to more senior people and ask them to mentor them, and they are not very clear what exactly they're trying to get out of it, or why they've chosen that person, or what they've done already before they've come to ask that question. And in that case, I was able to give an exciting enough response for her to decide that I was worth another 30 minutes of her time. So initially she was like, yeah, I'm going to give you 30 minutes and we'll talk for 30 minutes and I'll see if you're worth the time. And that was exactly what she said. And then we did 30 minutes and she decided that she wanted to continue investing her time in me. But ultimately, I think across all the people that I've spoken to, especially the more senior ones, who generally have a lot of demands on their time. It's always how I'm able to convince these people to invest their time in me is, I'd say, one of a mix of two or three key things. The first is to be extremely clear why them, to be extremely clear why me, why should they invest in me? What have I done already that proves that I am worth investing time in? And also to just show that I can contribute something. No matter how senior a mentor is, I always try to be able to contribute something back to them. So with Elise, for example, before I went to her at all, I knew that she wanted to start a blog. She'd been talking about it in the office for a while. And as part of that initial conversation, I already offered to do that for her, for example. And at Amazon, for example, where I've asked someone on the AWS side of the business to mentor me, as part of that initial call, I'm offering to be their voice in retail and to be their eyes in retail, that kind of thing. So three things: why me, why them, and what can I offer? Mentorships are not one-way streets. You should also be able to give something back to the mentor, whether it's time or even if it's an HBR article that you're going to send them from time to time, you should be able to give something back.
Fantastic. Why me, why them? What's in it for the mentor? It has to be a mutual relationship. Thanks a lot, Koyi. Shil, do you think that this topic of mentorship is overflowed? And also from that perspective, do you have mentors that you've engaged before? And how did you, if so, how did you cultivate that mentor-mentee relationship with them?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've actually just going through my head, and I don't think I've ever recalled having a mentor conversation or going to anyone and saying, can you be my mentor? I don't think I've ever done it. I'm thinking back, yeah, no, not UI, Vectiva, places I've worked in, no. But I guess maybe there are many ways around this but that doesn't mean I don't have mentors. What I found out is that in every place I've either worked or gone to school, some people express some level of interest or affinity for me. Whether you're working at a new job and you're learning the ropes and there's a supervisor that you get along with a bit or gives you a bit of pointers and the like. And what has happened for me and how that has been powerful is I've organically sort of gone back to those people and checked on with them. I did this presentation in this way. What do you think? Could I have done it in a different way? Or what's interesting? Kind of check-ins. And essentially what has developed in that way has been a mentor-mentee relationship over time without really being labeled as a mentor-mentee relationship. So I think the number one thing, whenever you're starting a new job or you're starting you're going to school in somewhere, doing something else, is the importance of not making mistakes other people have made. And I think one way of getting around that is essentially, as they said, Galileo or someone that said, the reason I can see further is because I've stood on the shoulder of giants. But that means genuinely being willing to ask people to help you be a better person in whatever I think you're doing. Now, if you can formalize it by saying, can you mentor me? Or you can finalize it, or you can informally check in with them from time to time and say, I did this thing, will you mind giving me feedback on this? This is how I'm thinking about this, will you mind this? And when you go to the same person 2, 3, 4 times in a year or more, a mentor-mentee relationship has developed. And so I think there are many people that are comfortable with different things.
Yeah.
I'm more on the shyer side, and I'm probably unlikely to be someone that will reach out to somebody proactively and say, please, will you be my mentor?
Yeah.
But I've found it very easy for me to proactively reach out and ask for advice on various things, and to go back to those people with that to give me advice on a repeated basis. Tell them, okay, when last time you spoke to me, I had issues with this. This is how I ended up resolving it. This is how I'm thinking now. What do you need to do and things? And when I've moved jobs and done different things and they're no longer even there, I've kept in touch with them. So essentially, I have mentors, and I've had mentors through my career and different things I've done. Neither me nor them. I've just called it, I'm a mentee, or is or a mentee or me. So I think for people who are a bit shy or who are a bit hesitant to say, let me go meet somebody and say, be my mentor, and how do I need to explain to them, how are you my mentor, are you not my mentor? There's a maybe middle ground of repeated check-ins with a few people, because people like to give advice on average with them, and make sure you absorb that advice. Whether you call them mentor, whether they call you mentor, I think it's a second order issue. The most important issue is to get good advice and feedback.
Yeah. No, thanks. Thank you very much, Shil. It sounds. I listened to a Simon Sinek video, mentorship, and he said something very, very close to what you've said. That the main mentor in his life, he never formally actually asked the person. He said he just actually walked up to the person and said, "Look, I have a problem with this. Help me resolve it." And that developed into a kind of friendship and relationship. And he said one day he went to the person's house and he told the person, "Thank you, you've been a great mentor for me." And the guy said that, "I didn't know I was a mentor for you. I would have thought the same way about you." So there was that mutual, benefits. They were both getting things from each other. So I think that's a very, very valuable input for this. Dami, based on your position in, you're a partner at E&Y. I can imagine the number of requests you get from people. I wanted to be my mentor. What qualities do you look for in a mentee? Whether it's in terms of the formal request or in terms of people who informally want to be mentees to you, what kind of qualities do you look out for?
Thanks, DJ. I think for me, and you're right. I work in a place where I have about 700 plus people. And I rarely sit down. Before COVID, you sit down at your desk and someone walks in to say, oh, he or she has this problem. And I just wonder that we've never spoken before. I don't even know that you're in this firm. Wow, how on earth, did you come to me and all of that? But one particular trait that I always like to see is someone that is willing to listen and willing to act. So what I found out is, I don't want to waste my time trying to be your mentor when we discuss things and, I see that the to-dos are not carried out. They're not my to-dos. They are your to-dos. They are things that we both agreed for you to get to where you want to get to. And I look at it, I've spent time on people and they just go the opposite. So I think the idea of having a mentor is one thing. The real practical steps to take, right, in ensuring that mentee actualizes those discussions and activities that should follow is another thing, which, so for me, is a willing heart, right? A willing heart. And I have a lot of colleagues, right? Junior colleagues that today, many of them have,
waiting for you now.
Some of them have gone. Someone, please go on mute. Some of them have gone. Sorry, Olatunde, please.
Olatunde, please, can you go on mute?
Some of them have gone for their MBAs in the Ivy Leagues in the US and all of that. And it strikes me when I see on YouTube, they mention my name that, oh, these discussions that we had, so helped them to do this, and this is where they are. And I even forget that I've forgotten that, we've had those kind of discussions. So really, it's a willing heart. Are you really serious that you want to be a mentee? Because you're, like Doctor said, how many hours do you really have in a day? So if I'm going to be a mentor, then that means that you are actually serious about it. And you really want to, there's something you want to benefit from, right? And so if that is available, if that is there, otherwise, the moment I see that you are not serious, I just I don't want to, we all have a lot of things to do. And I always try to make sure I maximize my time.
Yeah. One thing you've said is you look out for their ability to follow through on conversations that you've had with them. So it's not just about people coming and saying, I want you to be my mentor, coming to ask questions. When they come next time, you want to see that they've made an effort. It doesn't even have to be that they did it and it worked, but they have to have made an effort, in that direction. Very, very, very important. I think it's a good segue for us to move into the topic of networking, just because of for the sake of time. And Damian, I will still stay with you. Okay. So in your role, you're a partner at E&Y, and networking is perhaps one of the most critical skills that is required to be successful at that level. But we all know that networking is one of the most intimidating or daunting things for most people. And I'm not just talking about, networking at a social event. I'm talking about the entire spectrum of what it takes to build a solid network around yourself. Question is, what do you think is the role of networking in developing oneself, and how should it be approached?
Thank you very much. I think this topic is really exciting because, if I look at my career journey, I've realized that the whole journey itself has helped in my networking capabilities. So I work in an investment banking environment prior to joining EY. And my greatest weakness was ability to network, and that was a key requirement or prerequisite to progressing. What does that mean? Beyond execution, you should be able to leverage on relationships to bring business, to create visibility for yourself. So when I saw that, I said, what do I need to do? On one hand, I relate a lot with more or less not just local clients, but also, foreign investment bankers and foreign clients and all of that. In fact, my employers at the time, most of them were all these Ivy League guys that they really like, the idea of Ivy League. So I was in Ivy League. I just went to IFE. Interestingly, most of you here, Dr.
Except Shion.
Exactly, except Shion. Most of us went to IFE. And for me, the idea of success at the time was, because my dad was an accountant, was really, let me just do the accounting professional exams, pass with my BSc, I'm good. So all along, when I looked at how do I break in to even strike a conversation, yes, I had the qualifications. Yes, I had the technical skills. I'd worked with 2 other big fours. I have the exposure. But how do I break in to say, oh, Dr. Taiwo, we met somewhere, maybe at the lobby. How do I talk to him? How do I get to know his name? All those things. They were a big puzzle. So I was an introvert as well. So when I looked at it, I felt, look, for me to progress, I need to change the dimension of things. I needed to change the dimension of things. So I now, I now tried to do an MBA. Because of my work, I did a part-time MBA in Warwick Business School in the UK. And little did all of them know that the reason why I came for that MBA was simply to learn about networking, because that was more like the greatest. Some people went for the degree, some people went for more knowledge. I went for more knowledge as well. But number one on my own priority was, how do I strike a conversation with a foreigner who doesn't have my trait, my culture, and all of those kind of things? Being that I've not worked, maybe most of you are here, most of the panelists have probably worked at in more developed market. At the time, I hadn't. So when I got into the MBA, the team will say, look, let's go to the pub. Number one, I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do any of those things. So when they go to those places, I just ask for still water. And they wonder, what's wrong with this guy? That people are drinking this, but I stick to my stuff. And a lot of things they say, I try to get myself carried along. At times they crack jokes, they're not funny. I laugh, but I get a sense of humor out of it and all of that. But guess what? By the time I was done with that program, the kind of boldness I got, I don't even understand it. So when I got to EY, as a senior manager, right? And when I got in, EY wasn't attractive at the time until 2013, when some investments from the global office came that started hiring across the world and all of that. Everything now changed. So people now started saying, oh, you know too many people. Even my wife says it. That anywhere we go, before you get to one point, 5 people will have held you down, greeting you, talking. I have to be begging my wife that please, 1 second, you know. But it's the journey didn't start from even the MBA. It started from my first job. How did I know Sheung? I knew Sheung way back when I think maybe PwC days, or Sheung has a friend that I know, and somehow I knew Sheung. We're all doing exams. From there, I went to KPMG, and all down the line, all those people I've known, I stayed in touch with those that I could stay in touch with, and I could relate. Deji and I mean, we just met on a job, and you know, the way we interacted, again, I don't belittle anybody. I relate with the least person in my office, to the assistants, to the cleaners, to, I mean, anybody, because I know that one day, even when you're at the low level, you will get up to the high level. I think that networking is not a function of you looking up to people at the top, that you must connect with this higher person and all of that. No, it's a function of how you're able to interact, you know, how you're able to socialize. I don't go to nightclubs. Some people said I must live in Lekki to be able to know bank CEOs or clients that are CEOs. I don't live there. I live on the mainland in Lagos, right? But yet I know all these people, you know. So the second thing before I stop, so that others can talk also, is that my greatest network, and I don't want to sound religious, guys, where I got my strongest network is in the church. Strangely, because since I got serious with God, since I gave my life to Christ, right, I've been working in the church. Now, the greatest one, let me just mention this before I go, is a year, I was just talking to the pastor of the church, and he said, oh, what am I doing at work? And I just gave a hint of certain projects I was working on. And from there, because he's also connected, he just told me, look, this thing might be some interesting stuff for the vice president. So I was laughing at, okay, what was this man talking about? You know? And before you know it, he scheduled a meeting the following week. He said we should go to Aso Rock. Are you listening to me? So when I said that, I said, which Aso Rock? What are we discussing here? Just the project I mentioned. So I took that discussion to the office. I wasn't even a partner then. I took it to the office, and the partners at the time, my boss, said they wanted to go, because how can I, as a junior person, go and represent my organization in Aso Rock to the vice president? So like 4 senior partners and the managing partner, they followed me. You know, I was praying along that journey that, you know, I didn't ask for this. If this thing is all a joke, please stop it. I don't want to see anybody. And so we went, and someone now called while we were waiting, that the vice president is in Ibadan. We are in Abuja. Do you get? And the meeting was meant to be 4, that the vice president was still in Ibadan. My heart was pounding that these people will think maybe I'm just trying to, you know, play a trick on them. So eventually 7 o'clock, VP flew in, of course, with PJ and all of whatever he flew in with, and we met him. Now, the point I want to make out of this is that ordinarily that meeting would have taken place through another contact. Maybe like the people that tell me I must live in Ikoyi, or I must live in Lekki, I must live anywhere. It was the pastor that, if you see that pastor, you will not imagine that he has that relationship. Do you understand? And we opened the door. And since he opened that door, there's been subsequent doors that have opened. So for me, nobody should be left out of that. You know, don't think for you to network, it has to be this CEO or this big person or that person. It's more or less your ability to relate with people at all levels. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dami. I think one thing I picked up from that is network across board. I think one thing we see quite a lot is that even people think that to network you have to build only up, but it's not only up. You build across your peers, and you build down as well. Anybody, just build a good relationships with people, and it's a good way to even start learning the ropes on how to network with people. And I think the underlying point is also have something to offer. Because if there was nothing you had to offer, you wouldn't have the opportunity to actually have met, led your senior partners to meet with the vice president. We are running out of time, but there are still a few questions I want us to touch on before we go to the Q&A. By the way, I have seen some questions, but please keep your questions coming. We'll answer the ones we can, and the ones we cannot, maybe there'll be another opportunity to answer them. So Sheung, I want to come to you now. I know I wouldn't say you're an old man, but you're not particularly the young man you used to be 10, 15 years ago. So
unfortunately.
So the question is, what are some of the things that you appreciate more in life and relationships at this stage in your life that you took for granted when you were younger?
I mean, I think the more I think about it is, I guess, three things then along those lines. One is on network, how important that network is not just a vertical, network up situation, and how important it is that, over time, if from in professional world, try as much as possible to do a good job and to be a great colleague. And not to be one of those people that are doing politics up and down, because you don't know where that will come from and come to help you. The job when I was in private equity, the job I got, I literally got it without even knowing that job existed or so. It was somebody I had worked with years before in investment banking, that he was not that much senior to me, but not like it was the head of the game. That we kept in touch. I did a good job then. Just heard randomly from some people that are now become his clients in private equity that are looking to hire people. And he called me, he's like, this thing, and my mind went straight to you. If I had done a bad job, if I had not been a reliable colleague and the like, he would not remember that would happen. And I had not even spoken to him about trying to move. So I think from a professional standpoint, one thing I've realized over time, if you work in a company, it's like the biblical admonition: whatsoever your hands find doing, do it well. Oftentimes, we spend a lot of time thinking about what we want to do next, where we want to go, our ambitions, our goals, and things. That's all well and good. Everyone should have ambitions. But that one you are doing now, whether it's where you want to be, whether it's not where you want to be, it's of extreme importance to do whatever it is that you are doing today, doing it very, very well, because it's going to be, you might be shocked where that thing will come down later. And so I think that's really, really important. The second thing that as I've gotten older, I guess also is just, well, I've never been a social media person as much.
We have to beg you to come on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I've never really been a social media person as much. I think social media can be toxic. And I think many younger people will be doing themselves a favor if they don't spend too much time on it, because it leads to this issue where, it's like the Yoruba saying, and I will translate of Kama wa gwala go sare, is if you are on Instagram or LinkedIn, you would think everybody in this world is having an amazing life except you. And everybody's doing all these great things, and you put yourself under this kind of pressure to impress and this. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We all have our different races to run. Some people will become something faster than other people. Some people have other things. But at the end of the day, is what matters to you in your life and how you live your own truth that matters. So one thing I would advise, if I can give that kind of advice, is people should consume social media as little as possible. And I think it's part of the crisis we are talking about when we talk about whether people are under the influence and other things, is when you put yourself in a pressure cooker, you look for all sorts of escape valves. And part of the putting yourself under that pressure cooker is this constant benchmarking of, hey, this person went to Santorini, they put this thing on Instagram. May have gone to Abule Egba for vacation. Hey, my life, I start to use this. So I think that's something I've also got to learn over time, is just the extreme importance of not comparing oneself. That doesn't mean you lack ambition, but it means being comfortable with your own reality and just making it like your life is your life. And I will shut up very soon. I think the third thing I've also learned is, and it's related to the first one, it takes almost the same energy to be nice and that it takes to be nasty. Like, just treat people well as much as you can. If you work in an office and there's the gate man, or treat them well, don't shout on them. Just, I've seen people, honestly, whose careers have been derailed by the assistant secretaries in the office that gang up against them and make sure that the career came to a halt. And it's just it's just really important. There is no, I don't see what benefit is to be gained by kicking down. And I think sometimes, if truth is to be told, right, there are many good parts of our culture, but one of our the slight negatives is the big man nature. And if you think you're a big man, or the way to do it is to do this, but it is, if you can, just try to be nice to people. It doesn't cost you anything. Nobody's saying be giving money to everybody you see on the street. No, that's not what. But like, just treat people with respect as much as you can, because it doesn't cost you anything, and it's a big benefit to other people. And you never know where it will come back to bite if you're nasty to people that are perceived to be lower hierarchy than you. So it's those three things of doing a good job wherever you are, even if that's not where you want the end point to be, of having a great sense of dealing with other people with respect as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Shem. The first thing you mentioned about doing whatever your hand finds to do, I think it's something everyone needs to take away from here, honestly, because I've seen this as one of the biggest derailers of many people. I don't like what I'm doing, so I do it anyhow. But for me personally, that has been probably one of my strongest advocates. Whatever my hand finds to do, I do it well. I might not know where the next thing is. I might not know what the next thing is, but that which I have in my hands now, it has to be done extremely well. I have to be the best at what I'm doing. And I think that's a very, very apt advice or instruction. So that we'll have enough time for questions. I will go to Koya, and I'll be reaching into a very, very soft space, Koya. The question is, have you had to deal with incompetence in yourself at any point? And how did you achieve mastery, or how did you navigate the situation at that season in your life?
Yeah. So I can talk about, for example, after I finished that business school, I went to work in consulting. So I joined the strategy consulting team at Accenture in London. And I was working on consumer goods clients. So I'd worked at P&G for maybe 7 years before I went to business school. So it made sense that I would work on consumer goods. And I knew the industry pretty well. I'd worked in supply chain. I had a very good idea how purchasing should work. I kind of really knew the industry. Another thing is, I've had a blog since maybe 2009. I enjoy writing. I read a lot. I'd always thought I was a great communicator. So you can imagine how shocked I was when, after my first few, and I was relatively senior, I'd come in with an MBA from inside, I was relatively senior. So you can imagine how shocked I was when, after my first few client meetings, the feedback that came back through my bosses was that, that guy was great. He knew what he was talking about, but he just completely sucked at communicating. And I took it very personally, because I don't know, like, if you have a Nigerian CV where it comes to the skills section, Everybody puts communication as a skill. I've done a lot of public speaking. I just really felt like this is something I'm supposed to be good at, and to hear not one person, not two people, multiple people from different clients come back to say, the guy is smart, but we have no clue what he's talking about half the time. It was just really shocking. So that's the context. I've always felt like I can learn quickly. So while this was very shocking and I allowed myself to be sad for a weekend, I picked myself up on Sunday evening and I was like, this is my job. I have to do it pretty well and I need to learn to communicate better. And the first thing was just really digging into the feedback to understand what the issue was. Like, was this cultural? Was this the fact that this was, a different environment, a different setting with different people that like to communicate differently? Or was this really about me, my tone of voice? Was I talking too quickly, etc.? And once I kind of like just really dug into the feedback, both, feedback that came from the top, but also from talking to my peers. So like peer consultants, even some analysts who had worked with, who had been in some of those presentations, just be like, honestly, what did you think you were there? I then realized that, there was indeed an issue and I needed to learn. And I kind of went after it in a very manic fashion. So it was a mix of things. It was went back home that evening and I was like, one, I'm going to buy every single book I can find on how to communicate better. I think the most useful one was The Pyramid Principle by Barbara Minto. So I got that one. But it was also just realizing that I needed to practice with people. And so I kind of like found a community of both junior people because they had more time than my peers. So initially it was just junior people. It was a bunch of analysts at the firm. And whenever I was about to go share something with a client, I'd gather them and put them in the room and make them listen for 30 minutes and give me critical feedback. And I'd tell them, if you don't have something critical to say, you are being kind. And I got all sorts of feedback. In the beginning, it was hard. It's hard not to take these things personally when people go after like how you pronounce words, go after your cadence, go after, body language, everything. But I think ultimately, by starting first with the analysts, then checking with my peers, and eventually like working up to partners, and practicing the things that I was reading in the books that I was taking on board the feedback.
Try slap because I'm bending.
Stand straight now.
David, can you go mute?
Whatever they are blending, I hope they share some of it with us afterwards. But yes, ultimately just taking that feedback, just being open to get the feedback, inviting it and making sure that I acted on it. And then going forward, one of the things that really helped a few months down the line was as I started to regain my confidence with presenting again externally, I will then try to get a peer or one or two different analysts to be in the room. Sometimes I'd record the presentations or the discussions just so that I could continue to get feedback over the next few months and fine tune the way that I was communicating. So it was really weird because it really struck at my core. I always thought I was a great communicator and then I found out I wasn't after all. But I then went after, so just to recap, there was the books, there was the practical learning with just people who were in similar jobs. And then there was just making sure I took the feedback on board and put it to use and still sought more feedback as I went along. I stopped doing consulting about 9 months after this. So I don't know that I eventually became the greatest communicator ever, but I did learn a lot from that experience that I've also continued trying to build on as I've gone along.
Thank you very much, Koyi. I think the one point there is that feedback is a gift, and it's something that we should all actively seek out from peers, from our superiors, as it were, or even from our juniors as well. It is a gift, and it all around it helps to develop oneself. Fantastic. I wish I could go through all the questions that I have today. I really appreciate the depth of thoughts and advice and pearls of wisdom that you've all dropped. like I mentioned at the beginning, it's a multifaceted problem, and I'm not sure this conversation is what is going to solve it. But I think it has to start, it has to light a fire in someone's heart and in someone's mind, and then the tools as well. And that's why I'm not big on motivational, talk. There needs to be tools, there needs to be resources, and I think I've heard a couple of things here and there that they've been very apt, and I think it's going to be a lot for people to go and talk about. The way the session runs, there's going to be a case study over the next week and over the next 2 weeks, and some of the points that we've dropped here today are some of the things that the group are going to go in to look at in more details, talk about it, engage in smaller groups, and see how they can turn themselves around, and have a better quality of life. What they can take from that. My last question, and this question is going to run across board, and I want you to give me a very quick response, including Mentee as well. My last question is: what is one advice you have that the young men listening today, or rather, what's the one advice you want to give to them that you wish you had when you were younger? So I will start from Hui, and then I'll walk through.
I need a little bit of time to think. So I think you should actually start with Dr. Taiwo or someone else, and then work back to me.
Okay, let me start from the other end then. Mentee, you want to go first?
Yes, thank you. I wish someone had told me that I should pay more attention to my thoughts, because they would manifest themselves. I believe it. I thought I believed it 20 years ago, but I believe it way more now. And I think somebody has just drummed even more the importance of it to me, that more than anything else, I should just pay attention to what I'm thinking. They have a way of just coming out in real life.
Yeah. Guide your heart with all diligence. Thoughts make you fantastic. Mentee, thanks. Sheon.
I don't know what it is, but I guess the thing I feel more strongly about now than I've probably done any time is, there's the saying, I don't know where it comes from, to thy own self be true. That's probably the thing that I feel most strongly about now, is there's a lot of pressure that people put on themselves are not just not necessary, they can be damaging. And understanding the reason you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, and understanding that you're doing it because it brings you as a person fulfillment, and that you think it's the right thing. Not necessarily, no one is saying, and I'm not saying don't respect friends, society, parents, but ultimately you have to be accountable to yourself and to and understand that, like in our social media golden fishbowl world, where it almost seems like we're all living for other people, we can put ourselves under a lot of pressure that is actually, at the end of the day, we think people think about us more than people actually think about us. Everybody's getting on with their own life, and you're like, what if there's a phrase I think I wish I was really in tune with 15, 20 years ago, is to take that phrase that's called "what will people think" and just cross it out. Because I think it will simplify life a lot. It's hard because we all have pressures, but is that what will people think? If you can just take it away from your head, it's better to think, if you are a religious person, what will God think? What will I think? What will this mean for me? But like this idea that the so-called people, I don't know who they are. I don't think anybody has ever showed me who people is. But a lot of time we talk a lot about what do people think. If we can minimize that, at least we might not be successful, but at least we'll be less anxious.
It does minimize some noises around you.
Yeah.
So their own self be true. Thanks a lot, Sheon. Dami.
Yeah, thanks. I'll put it in 3 words. The first is, focus. who do you want to be really as a man? And if you determine what you want to be, just pay attention. There's a lot of noise out there, a lot of distractions that will keep you from achieving it. And again, if you are following if you are following another person's path to determine yours, I think you will not be able to really get to where you want to get to. In my office, a lot of people leave and join on a daily, regular basis, right? Now, so someone that just joined today, we say, this person has left. It's gone to US office. You that you are also saying that, and you feel like going, you don't have the experience that person has, right? To be able to go, but you just lose focus straight up. And the little one they give you, you can't do. And I'm wondering, how will you be able to get to that that place you also want to get to? So that's one. The second one is knowledge. Knowledge is power, right? I've always known that from maybe since I was less than maybe 3 years old. That's what they've been telling us in my house. You mean I'm an Ibadan person, just for information. Knowledge, that's what my dad will say, ring in your head every blessed day. Knowledge is power. In fact, to tell you, I was 10 years old when I went to ISI, you dare not be sleeping at 6 a.m. at 10 years old. You have to read for like 1 hour before you go to school. So I found that strange. I felt this man is just a wicked man, So, but as time went on until today, I've started imbibing the same in my kids. Knowledge, seek knowledge. Because even the Bible says it in Proverbs, that someone that has knowledge is continues to grow stronger and stronger. So you want to be better than the next person, seek knowledge, and you get power. And then the last one is Kaizen. It's a Japanese word. For those of you that did engineering, I'm sure you know that word very well. Continuous improvement. What we see nowadays is people get to a level, they say, I've arrived, now I'm better, I'm at this level now. So you have to continue, particularly for those of us that work in a knowledge environment where you need to continue to, and largely everybody, you need to continuously improve yourself. If you've gotten here today, you need to ask yourself, where's the next challenge? Where's the next level? And then if you walk that way, I believe strongly that you achieve a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Dami. Koye, you ready for us now?
Yes, and I will be very brief. So it's two things. The way I reframed the question, so I just turned 30, and the way I reframed the question was, what did I wish I knew when I was 20, for example? And it really touches on something Sean said. The first one is, what matters is what I do relative to what I'm capable of, not what I do relative to what other people do or expect. We all have unique life context. We all have unique strengths, unique dreams, and unique callings. You are not me, I'm not you. What matters is that you are doing what you're capable of, and wherever you are, you're doing the best that you can to prepare for the next thing. And I think that's something I wish I was clear on when I was 20. And I think the second thing is something that I will touch on at the beginning, and it's something that I've really embraced for like the past 2 to 3 years, and I've seen the results in a massive way, and that's deep work. I think if there's one thing I could have known about 10 years ago that would have significantly changed the trajectory of my life, like over the past decade, it will be the ability to work deeply. He talked about it in a lot of details. So I'm not going to repeat anything that is said. If you Google it, there are a lot of book summaries. So there's a guy named Cal Newport who wrote this amazing book called Deep Work. And in that book, it really goes into the core of the argument, why it is becoming increasingly rare and why it is becoming more valuable as a result. And I think that when people work really deeply and we take on board the other things that the other panelists have said, continuous improvement and the likes, there is really no limits apart from, of course, your natural capabilities. There will be no limits to what you can achieve if you can work deeply and seek continuous improvement.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Koye. We have the time has elapsed, unfortunately, but I know that there were a few questions. Not many questions were dropped. So I will just take if you wouldn't mind, just to take one of the questions, and I think it was directed to Mentee, and the question was around. 1 second, I'm trying to put it out again. Yes, the young man said he just secured a mentorship opportunity with an older man. And the main purpose for the mentorship is accountability. However, I think I'm not well equipped to maximize the relationship. I'd like to know major things to put in place from my end and possibly recommend a book to get the right frame of mind.
Okay. I guess my question back to that person would be accountability for what? What exactly is it are you trying to do? Are you trying to be a better programmer, a better accountant? Are you trying to go to grad school? I mean, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to become the managing director of your firm that person needs to keep you accountable for? But accountability is a good concept, but I think we need to go a step deeper and say accountability for what? That direction is more important than the speed. So once you're clear about what you want, everything else becomes obvious. But you need to first be clear about what you want.
Thank you very much, Mentee. I think we've come to the end of the session. I'd like to say a big thank you to all the panelists, Mentee, Dami, Koye, Sheil. For me, I think this has really been very, very insightful. There are so many things I could connect with, I could relate with, and so many things I'm picking up from here. And I'm sure that everyone here too, there are a couple of things they've picked up from this session that they will be able to run with. So thank you very much. And I also want to say thanks to everyone who joined. It's 1.5 hours on Saturday evening. I know it's not the easiest way to spend your Saturday evening, but thank you very much. And I wish you all a very lovely weekend. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll be in touch with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.